I made a video a little while back titled "What Does Cisgender Mean?" and this surprised me quite a bit, but it actually made a lot of people very angry. So, I thought I'd try making it again. Let's start with a basic definition. A cisgender person is somebody whose identity matches the one they were assigned at birth based on their assumed sex. When somebody is born and the doctor says it's a girl, and all throughout their life that person identifies as a girl, feels comfortable as a girl, that person is cisgender. Make sense? Okay. Whenever I describe this, I get a lot of people asking me why we don't just use normal. At the end of the day, there really is no normal when it comes to gender or sex. It's a lot more complicated than that. Gender identity comes in all sorts of shapes, colors, and sizes. While there are many people who do identify as a man or a woman, there are also people who identify as genderqueer, non-binary, agender. Transgender people may identify within the binary terms of man or woman, but do not identify with the gender they were assigned with at birth. When you cross cultural borders, there are even more identities. There are societies that have 3 or 5 or more genders that native English speakers may have never even heard of before. Cisgender is just one of the many different ways people identify their gender. Of course, when I say this, I usually get the typical biological sex argument. People tell me you are either born as a male or a female with corresponding genitalia. Simple, clean cut, done. But it's actually more complicated than that. First, let me specify how I'm distinguishing sex from gender. Sex is typically used to describe the certain chromosomes, sexual organs, and secondary sex characteristics that we're born with. Gender, at least in a binary sense, is the social role that we are expected to take because of that. It's the labels we're expected to have, the way we walk, the way we dress, the way we talk, what kind of jobs we should have. And it's kind of silly when you look at it and realize that somebody's genitalia should have nothing to do with what they wear or what they say. But beyond that very convoluted relationship, sex is actually a lot more complicated than we're made to believe. You know how in science classes you'll often do a unit on sex and your teacher will bring up chromosomes, XX and XY, right? Wrong. There's also XXY, XXYY, XXXY, and a whole lot more. There also may be people who are born with XX and XY chromosomes, but their genitalia or physical characteristics that we usually use to identify sex don't match. An individual born this way is intersex. About 1 in 1,500 people are born intersex. It may not sound like very many, but it's actually about as common as people born with red hair. But that, of course, is as far as we know. I mean, think about it. Have you ever had your chromosomes tested? There may be, and probably are, a lot more people that fit into this category than we're led to believe. It's actually common practice in the medical field right now to perform surgeries on intersex infants without their consent in order to, and I put heavy air quotes around this, correct their gender. Oftentimes, this information is hidden from these individuals later in their life, going to the extent of erasing and corrupting information on their own medical records. Not only does this make the number of intersex people we believe exist incredibly unreliable, it's also unjust and cruel. If you want to know more about it, you should check out some links I have in the description. Sex, and consequentially gender, is taught. From the moment we're born, we're told how we're expected to walk, talk, dress, how to relate to others, who we should marry, all based on our perceived sex, which, as I just stated, is actually a lot more complicated than we're made to believe. Case studies have shown that we only have this perception of ourselves as a man or a woman because we're told that that's the way it is. Children who grow up without that socialization have no way of distinguishing the two categories, because in a lot of ways, they're not real. There's so much more than male or female, man or woman. It's just that we're taught that that's what's true or natural. All identities ranging from trans and genderqueer to, yes, even cisgender are a combination of nature and nurture. A complex response to the gendered society we live in. A constant attempt to navigate our own identity in a world that tries to categorize us into 2 distinct, opposite options. Whether we fit into these categories or not is an effect of our environment. The term cisgender is just one way to clarify that the male-female binary is not the default. They are not what is natural or normal or the only real options. Being assigned a male or female sex at birth and therefore being raised as a man or woman is social. It is societal, it is structural, and it's limited. One way to recognize this is to recognize that cisgender is just one part of a complex web of bodies and minds that we are slowly beginning to unravel and understand. It's a way of looking at the bigger picture. That is what cisgender means.